Liquor Talk, brand new episode starts now. Welcome to another edition of the Liquor Talk podcast. I'm your man, Victor. This is episode 290. I can't believe it. We are 10 episodes away from 300, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, the podcast journey is on the grind, but we still grinding. Podcasting out of Seattle. She is the host of the Life Unscripted podcast and 4 other podcasts. She's a business entrepreneur. She helps everybody with their podcast. It's DaniMarie. She was in the comment section a few weeks ago, and now she's on Liquor Talk just that fast. That's how we do things. How you doing tonight, Danny? And welcome.
Bless. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing wonderful. I appreciate you having me on the platform. How are you?
I'm doing great. You know, wonderful. I'm about to get this platform up, right?
Yes, awesome. The Liquor Talk pod.
Yes, I'm retiring from podcasting.
You retiring?
April Fool's, motherfuckers. If y'all motherfuckers believe that, it's April Fool's. Happy April Fool's month, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, you got me. I'm like, wait, what? 300 and you're already what? Tapping out? That's such a good benchmark.
I got 300 more in me. You know?
Okay. Bless. I love that.
Listen, happy April Fool's month, ladies and gentlemen. I hope y'all didn't get pranked, but y'all out here didn't fall for any pranks or traps, you know. So, but Danny, tell us about your journey. You got 5 platforms. Talk to me about everything, man. Tell us about all your platforms.
Well, yeah, thank you so much again for having me. I am a single millennial mom based in Tacoma, Washington, and we shared just a moment ago. That's about 30 to 45 minutes south of Seattle. So most people know either Washington, D.C. or Seattle, Washington. I'm in Tacoma, Washington, south of Seattle. And basically my journey for podcasting started I would say I was first introduced in 2020. My Lyft driver at the time sowed a seed, told me that he was a producer for podcasts and that he had his own studio. It wasn't until I got laid off from my second full-time job as a single mom, taking care of my 1-year-old at the time, trying to make ends meet, doing 2 full-time jobs. But because of COVID, knowing that I was going to be laid off from both full-time jobs, I knew I needed to kind of push myself into something different. The fact that I was a new mom with a child during the pandemic, trying to figure things out, the loss of my dad, and just all of this newness, I really struggled for a bit with my self-identity all over again. And so podcasting seemed to be a natural progression for me, a space where I can talk openly and candidly to kind of deal with all of these interpersonal issues. So I started a podcast with my mom. That gentleman who was my Lyft driver back in 2020 was in fact my producer. We did 20 episodes together as a unit. And before we ever released a single episode, we batched all of that content, and that was actually at the tail end of my second pregnancy. So I pretty much talked to my podcast with my mom about mental health, childhood trauma, generational curses, and societal stigmas that single moms face. Because again, I was a single mom, raised by a single mom, trying to figure life out. And that basically set the trajectory for me kind of getting addicted to podcasting. I've always been a person that people can come to and kind of lay everything out on the table, very non-judgmental, very open. And yeah, that's pretty much the reason and the way that I've gotten into it. Just kind of, like I said, been that open book. I have a master's degree in educational leadership. I have an associate's degree in human services. I have a bachelor's degree in liberal arts. And so all of that kind of combined creates this nice packaging for me to kind of lean into helping people on a large scale through podcasting. It's always been a passion of mine to amplify people's voices, to take care of people who find themselves in difficult situations. And so here I am, no longer doing Mother and Daughter Duo podcast, but my long-term goal is to go back and do Mother and Daughter Duo podcast, but create a network around it. But I'm kind of like exercising my muscles and just throwing out different darts and playing with different ideas. And so I have Motivation Monday Mommy Meetup. That's a podcast with busy moms who both have a business and deal with parenting and try to balance the two the best that we all can. That's group attendance. We have about upwards of 5 moms who come on. We use a quote to kind of talk about how we're feeling, how we relate to the quote, and kind of like talk around that. And then we have Life Unscripted is a one-on-one interview style format. And that's pretty much where I have a guest on to come talk about, most of the time it's a business coach, business or a coach, consultant, or author. That's pretty much those people that kind of come on Life Unscripted, and they talk about their arc and their story, their pivots, their transformations, and how they arrived to become who they are as of today in the present time. We have Throw It Back Thursday, where we have myself and 2 other people talking about mainstream media. We talk about social media, everything in the news and things that we are inundated with every day, and how we all reconcile with the stuff that we see on our platforms, on social media, and on the news. And then Follow Me Friday, again, group attendance, where upwards of 5 people join. Everybody has about 15 minutes of fame on the platform, talking about who they are, what they do, where they're from, and essentially why people should follow and support your movement. And then the last is Plan to Podcast, which is, I would say, kind of a branch off from my business, Plan to Podcast, helping industry experts launch, grow, and monetize their podcast. But we decided to create a podcast around it, talking to podcasters about their podcast. And so that has been me for the past few years now, and I love it.
Wow, I'm glad you love it. Rest in peace to your dad.
Thank you.
Never want to lose a parent, and I just wish dad could see this great work. So how did you find your love for it to keep going? Because this shit can be a struggle, you know.
Oh yes.
And because I have my days, I'm like, to hell with this, because it's some BS. But because you feel like nobody hears you, you pushing out work, you feel like nobody hears you, but you got 5 different platforms. Like, what motivates you to keep going?
Yeah, and I like that question, because I told you I'm always listening to my friends and my peers. And so I was listening to your podcast yesterday with, shout out to author Nikki, is how she coined herself on social media. But you guys were saying some of the barriers are people don't like to show up. It's hard to find guests, all of those things. So there are a lot of different reasons why people would get in it and not be able to sustain, because it is difficult at times. But I think because I have 5 shows, it keeps the variety and keeps me kind of interested. So even if people don't show up, or which I haven't had much of a bad guest experience, but there's so much variety in my day to day, week to week. That's what keeps me going. Like I can kind of just brush off the last experience because I already have another one lined up the same day. But also it's just really fun and invigorating for me to just have these conversations with people. I just love it. Yeah, that's the reason. That's how I keep going. And of course, I want to get to that space where I can create a network. And so that's also what keeps me. And then first and foremost, above all else, I feel like it is a passion within me, that a purpose that God has placed in me to kind of continue to amplify voices. I thought it would be educating people in a classroom, but it's educating people on a large scale through podcasting. And it doesn't have to necessarily be me always being at the forefront and teaching. It could be facilitating an experience where other people can come on a platform and educate. So that's what kind of drives my purpose. And then my 2 boys, we got to have something to bring in some money. So that's my driving force.
I feel you on that. I feel you on that. Also, shout out to author Nikki for having me on her platform, and also shout out to author Nikki as well. She came on Liquor Talk earlier in the month of March. So
I love the collabs.
We did the trade-offs, you know what I'm saying? And also, and I kind of feel you on people not being able to sustain the podcast, because I can tell you a number of people that I done had on. I go to their page today, and they're not even recording. I'm like, what the fuck? Because it's like, it's fun, and it's like invigorating to always talk to somebody new. So you always wonder what happened to them.
Yeah, it's like after 5 episodes, a lot of people fall off. And so back to my business plan to podcast, which I'm sure we will get into, but I do feel like if you start with the plan and a clear focus, then it's easier for you to be sustainable.
Mm. So, we'll get into that. What's your business? Who the kind of people you look for? Or the people that say they want to start a podcast? Because you know that I've realized in my years of podcasts, I've dealt with people that they tell me, "Hey, I want to start a podcast. I want to do this. I want to do that." But you go to their page and you go to their social media, I don't see them going on live. I don't see them with a name. I don't see nothing.
Yeah.
So how do you determine who I need to help out and who might just be a waste of my time?
So for me, and I still kind of not struggle with that, but I still do kind of play with the language around that because, yes, there are a lot of people who have flaked. We set up a meeting and then they don't even show up for the meeting. And it's like, you pursued me. I don't know why it's so hard for people to just take that next step. I think for a lot of people, podcasting is intimidating. They see a lot of people doing it and they feel like they can do it. But then once the reality hits that, okay, let's move in the direction. If you say you want to go in it, let's go in it. But I feel like people feel you need to be polished. You need to have all of the tools and the programs and the equipment to get started. So I think that is a big deterrent for a lot of people. But in terms of who I would like to work with, I say industry experts, people who already have been in their field, who have already been like coaching, who already have a sustainable business, who are already doing the work. And so this is just adding another extension to what you do and another stream of revenue for you potentially. Like that's the goal, to launch, grow, and monetize. But people overall who are ambitious. And usually those are industry experts who are already in their respective fields and already making waves, in their field.
That's real. Now, going back to your mother-daughter podcast, what motivates you to say, I want to do a podcast with my mom? Because
Right.
you might have to throw a little inspiration my way. Because I remember last year my mom pitched me. She said, "Hey, you should bring me on the podcast for Mother's Day." And my mom doesn't know this, but there are some things that I've healed from. But I'm like, Mom, are you ready to have a conversation with your son while sipping on some liquor,
Right.
You sure you're ready for that? So
Yeah,
tell me, what
totally
motivates
true.
you to have a podcast with your mom?
Yeah, for me, after like having my firstborn child, there was like no other way. Like I had to address a lot of the stuff that we've never talked about. So for me, I had to lean into it. If I was going to be raising a boy, another child, another human being, there's a lot of things in my past that I had to address with my mom. So she really had no choice in it. I basically pulled her along and she was like, okay, Danielle, I'll do it. That's my full name, obviously. But she was a willing participant, even though at first it was like, what do you have me in? And then, of course, coming from a Black household, whatever happens in our home stays in our home, all of that. But I think once she started to hear the feedback, she saw that this was helping not just us, but other families, other mother and daughter duos. But ultimately, because I was a mom and I was raised in a single parent household and I was becoming a single mom, there was a lot of stuff that we needed to address. I say, I was like a 12-year-old girl still in a grown adult body. Not actually. I'm still like very petite and small, sometimes looking like a boy. But anyway, I'm 37 years old, but still a lot of part of me was still like 12 years old when it came to my mother. And it's just because we haven't got to talk about things like both being molested or both being single moms or the absence of my dad, his physical absence when he wasn't around, and her emotional absence, or the fact that she was a helicopter mom. How was I going to parent my son being as though I was raised in a helicopter household, in a latchkey household at that too? So all of those things were the reasons why I had to lean into those tough discussions with my mom, because I wanted to like address everything that was haunting me including the mental health, childhood trauma, generational curses, and stigmas that single moms face. And so those were the issues I was passionate about. And so that's why we focused on those 4 things. And that's the reason why we decided to lean in and have tough conversations. Abandonment issues, parenting styles, daddy issues, all of those conversations we talked about.
So through those conversations, was your mom able to take accountability for maybe her wrongdoings and, what I'm saying, where your come up and stuff? Because the one thing I will admit about my mom is like sometimes she kind of struggled with having to take accountability of what went wrong in the past. Did you have that issue with your mom, or was she open and honest about, okay, I effed up here, I fucked up here, and this is how it should have been done?
Yeah. So great question. She actually was able to take some accountability, but really the onus was on me. And a lot of the stuff that I probably kept what would be the word I would use? Kept, at the time, I was able to convey and articulate my feelings a lot more on the podcast. But before, I didn't necessarily have the words. So I would just kind of throw darts or have a lot, like a resentful spirit. And she couldn't understand where it was all coming from. So I think a lot of the onus was on me taking accountability. But the biggest thing that we were able to get over was the molestation situation. So my mom, being a single mom, she had to kind of send me away to other people at times in order for them to care after us. And so that meant that she sent me to a babysitter's house, and the parentals were not there. The oldest son was there, and he, groped and molested me. And she and I never had that conversation. And I never knew what the outcome was. But on the podcast, she said, I apologize. I did confront the family. You guys never spoke to them again. I did confront them. I had no idea. And just hearing her say, I confronted them was enough for me. Like, all this time, I thought that it was kind of brushed under the carpet, but also come to find out she had experienced some of her own issues as well with molestation. And so sometimes that is the case. Sometimes our families don't have the words because they've been through the same type of trauma, and that would just resurface trauma for them. So that's why sometimes it's difficult. But I would say that I put my mom through a lot, having that vengeful, resentful spirit. And so really the onus was on me. And I think just being able to put that out in the open, we were able to kind of get over it and past it. And our relationship is a lot better than it was, for sure.
I appreciate you sharing that story about the molestation that happened to you, because that's major, what I'm saying? Because not many people want to share that.
Yeah.
Did that person get thrown in jail for that? Because that's
no.
You need to be thrown in jail. What?
No. Again, I think she addressed the family, but never pursued anything else after that. So no, he did not.
No, I figure with the whole Me Too movement going on and how everybody, if those kind of things happen, sexual assault happened back in the day, now all those things are coming to the light now.
And a lot of those things are, right? Like we're hearing about celebrities, name dropping Diddy and Cassie. Like a lot of people are coming out and saying, that this person violated me. And I think people get to a point in life where they feel that they're empowered to do something like that. But in my instance, no. But I do say that to those people that would argue, why are you just now speaking up after so long? I guess you can never really put a time on somebody else's trauma. And I'm learning that too.
Yeah. And I'm one of those people. I had to learn that as well, because my thinking is, if something happens to you, your first instinct should be to go to the authorities. But sometimes you don't have that strength to go to the authorities, because sometimes the authorities, they might not even believe you.
Right. Yeah, for sure. We've seen a lot of that happen too. And it's very troubling and a very slippery slope, because now you have some women who are in media and they kind of use that to bait men or to get a come up, and they're not fully honest. Or sometimes they allow themselves to be in a situation knowing what the potential outcome could be, but they much rather kind of, just like, for instance, not necessarily name dropping any people, but just we know young women who want to be a part of the industry, who want to be celebrities, who want to make it, and they would use a situation or a scenario to put themselves in a scenario where they feel like, I'm just going to do this because he has the potential to get me where I want to go. And then unfortunately find themselves in a situation that they really don't want to be in. And so we do have to be vigilant. We have to be very careful in the spaces that we succumb to and place ourselves in, and be very mindful. Protect yourself at all costs. But again, if something does happen to you, don't be shamed and say, well, I'm not going to speak out because I know I kind of put myself in this situation. Just avoid the situation if you can. But also don't be ashamed if it does happen to you.
Yes, I would definitely say avoid the situation if you can. That goes for both women and men. I need both
Right.
parties to avoid the situation because there's other ways around it. And also, it's sad that it's all this is coming out now. And also, I'm glad some people live to tell about it because there are some people that got off and now we're finding out why they got killed. And it's like, it was
Mm-hmm.
a setup.
Yep.
It's a sick world we live in.
Yes,
Ladies
we
and
do.
gentlemen, this is Liquor Talk. The more you drink, the better we sound. Ladies and gentlemen, we sound a whole lot better, even if it's a serious conversation or the real conversations with some liquor. Thank you for everybody that's supporting. Go ahead and support on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Twitch, wherever you get your podcasts at. Now, how does one manage 5 podcasts? Because I know you're basically podcasting every day.
Mm-hmm. I say a podcast plan. I say a workflow. I say scheduling systems and tools. And so, like, there's this big argument that I have with a lot of people. And I know we're on a platform called StreamYard, but I would advocate for like Zoom. That's my major key because in Zoom, a lot of the tools are easily accessible and there for you within the app. So Zoom has forms for your guests to fill out, a scheduling feature for them to click the link to schedule with you. They send out the alerts and the emails or the text messages. You have the option to pre-record or live record. You have the option to download audio or video or both. So I love Zoom, but I would just repeat that it's a workflow, a plan, and then an app or tools that are going to help your workflow. And then I ended up hiring 3 people total, but I recently let 2 people go. And that was for no other reason than I'm moving in a different direction. And so they did good for what they could help with and provide at the time, but they plateaued. So that's why I took this break and I'm kind of pivoting and I will be changing the brand up a little bit. And I think change is good for everyone. Constantly working on evolving the brand. But I do have to give credit to my team. When they were a part of the team, they were able to help me as well. And so I think that if you want to take podcasting seriously, you might want to consider having someone who's a talent booker and goes out to find talent for people to be on your episodes or your podcast. You might want to get a virtual assistant who can help you repurpose your content into a newsletter or a ebook or a book, or put your descriptions on your YouTube. So yeah, and then I have a third person who helps me with the business side, Plan to Podcast, which is the scheduling people who want to launch, grow, and monetize a podcast as well.
That's real. Those are some major key points right there to anybody that want to get into podcasting, who's already in podcasting. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm looking at, after I get to 300, I'm definitely going to repurpose, rebrand. I'll do all those things. And so, shout out to you as well, Danny. I do appreciate you for coming on. And so what's the biggest thing you wish you would have known about podcasting before you got into it?
The biggest thing I wish I would have known about podcasting. I'm not normally stumped, but that one is stumping me.
Really? That's the one that's stumping you?
I know. Because I have to try to be truthful, and nothing really stumped me or surprised me or has taken me aback, because I was like, I had a lot of time to think about what I wanted to do, and I had everything kind of planned out from creating the GoFundMe page that I never really used to creating a Teespring website to sell my merch before I launched one single episode. So I was pretty well prepared. I would say I could have leveraged, because I did create so much buzz and momentum when I first came out, like even down to my marketing strategy of how I premiered the podcast when I had the podcast, Mother and Daughter Duo podcast. So I told you guys I was pregnant in my third trimester. And what I did was went off social media, went off the grid, didn't tell anybody about my pregnancy. And when I finally told everybody about my pregnancy, it was on the tail end. Well, I combined the news with the podcast and the news with my pregnancy. So I rented out a movie theater. I rented out like one of those banners, and the banner said the premiere, and I was premiering the pregnancy and the podcast hand in hand. And so I could have used that momentum and that buzz and probably boosted some ads so that I can create even more buzz around it. But I just kind of kept it in between my friends and my family and my close circle. That would probably be the thing that I would have changed.
Wow, that's amazing that you did all that for the premiere. Because I'm thinking back years ago, all I did was I recruited a new co-host, and we just went from there. We shared on new social medias, and we didn't have the grand premiere like that. You know what I'm saying? I was like, but you gotta think bigger now. Nowadays,
You
now that
gotta
I'm
think
still
big.
thinking about it,
You gotta be thinking big, Bruce. Yeah. So I did do all of those things. And again, like I said, for me, it was never going to be just a hobby. It was supposed to be like a business. I was going all in because I was getting laid off from 2 jobs. So I had to make this kind of work. So I wanted it to be like this big thing and create buzz, but I could have probably boosted an ad or something in order for people to for me to get more visibility.
That's real. Now, what is the biggest piece of advice you want to give to people who are looking to start a podcast in 2024? We're only in April, and there's like a few more months until 2025. And you hear people all the time say, "Oh, I want to start a podcast. I think I'm gonna start a podcast." Like, what is your biggest piece of advice to them?
My biggest piece of advice is come holler at me. Hire me to help you. I will create a podcast plan, a comprehensive plan, that is, because there is so many details about podcasting that people do kind of get in it. And then it's just like, whoa, you can go to like so many different platforms, so many different directions in the equipment that you use. And so to figure out what works for you, instead of you kind of taking these baby steps, if you want to jump in it to win it and be sustainable from the time that you start through finish, then start with the podcast plan. And I would say also, so that it's not just all about me, I would say also the fact that people will tell you that this is an oversaturated market and there's no space for you, don't listen to those people.
Thank you.
You have a unique story. You are the value. You are the unique value proposition. Everything about you is why people will be attracted to what you do and want to follow and support you. Although it's not always your friends and your family, it's mostly strangers who will be your avid supporters. Don't listen to people that say this market is oversaturated. That's just like saying you might as well not have a social media page because everybody has a social media page, or like a YouTube channel because everybody has a YouTube channel. You can find what uniquely sets you apart from everyone else, and that will attract people. And there's enough space for everybody. And in my opinion, podcasting is kind of like the new social media page. Like, share your story, share your passion, and do it through a podcast. It's not an oversaturated market. And then when you do come over here, make sure you tap in with a coach or somebody that can set you up proper.
That's real, because podcasting is definitely not oversaturated, and also embrace the support wherever it comes from, because I there are a lot of people in different states that have supported me. Like, even though I get a little disappointed that people in my home state they really don't support as much. But I'm like, hey, I'm gonna embrace it from wherever it comes from, and show love to wherever they return the love. You know what I'm saying? Because hey, you got to, because if you focus on the fact that people in your local are not supporting you, you will get depressed.
Yeah, it's true. People that know you well are not typically going to support you, not because of any other reason, but because I made a post about this not so long ago. Like sometimes people don't support you because they're so motivated by you, they're trying to catch up to you. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing, but also because people see you all the time, you know, you're just, you know, you're just doing your thing, as are they, and you're both just trying to win. And so sometimes it's just like you fade to black for that person. You kind of just become something that happens all of the time. They're checking for everything that's new, unfortunately. And I don't think that that's bad, but just think of it as your reach is broader than your hometown, and you can have an opportunity to call people out and inward. So most of the time things will go outward, and then it'll be like the people that love and follow you most. Because I think I heard you say this too. You were podcasting for a while, but your mom is just now like, let me come over there onto the podcast, so sometimes it happens like that. It's an opportunity for you to branch out because maybe you need to reach other people and not think just hometown. And then after that happens, once you get this large following, that's when people that you know and love so well are like, okay, let me see what you got going on, because you're actually reaching beyond, our hometown. People want to see, people that love you, they want to see the evidence first before they actually buy into it, which is unfortunate. But again, they see us all the time that it just kind of happens like that.
Yeah. And also another thing that's unfortunate about the people you love, they will come up to you at events or functions and they'll say something negative about your podcast. Why you got this opinion? And so I'm like, well, goddamn. Why can't you give me the love? Shit, I'm over here being consistent when motherfuckers drop off after 7 episodes. I'm over here being consistent. Why can't you give us the love? So listen, don't to anybody out there, don't fall into the trap of the love, the negativity that comes from.
See, I'm a Taurus, so I'm just kind of hard by nature, and so it's like everybody can say whatever they want to say. It's just gonna go in one ear and not the other, anyways. Yeah. And I wish more people had that kind of frame of thought, but not a lot of people do. But again, you can ask them. You should be producing and not consuming. Instead of you talking about what I'm doing, why don't you produce a show and do it the way you feel you should do it, and stop trying to critique me.
Thank you. And that's the one thing I say about some of them people. And it's like, and after I'm a sage over here, but I got to a point in life where you tend not to care anymore. You just listen to them. You're like you just look at them a certain type of way now, but you kind of alienated me. But I look at you in a certain type of way now. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to feed into your BS because you might be miserable with your life, and they say misery loves company. So
meet people where they are at, and that's true.
Yes, you got to meet people where they're at. Moving forward, ladies and gentlemen, this is Liquor Talk. If you haven't got a cup of liquor already, go ahead and get you some. We don't promote. Hey, if you're at work, don't drink. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You can still listen to us. But by the way, just one off though. I don't know if you drink or not, but what's your favorite kind of drink?
Yeah, so I kind of stopped drinking only because after 2 pregnancies and not drinking, I just never picked it back up. But when I was drinking, I really only did either or. So when I was out in the club, I did Hennessy and a Long Island iced tea, or I did a Red Bull and a shot of Patron with the green one. I don't remember which one that was. So that was my combo.
Hey, don't let the fact that pregnancy and stuff, because I know plenty of single moms, they still throwing the bag. They still tell me, I got bottles of whiskey, I got tequila. They still out there throwing it back. Responsibly, you know what I'm saying?
I'm saying that when I was pregnant, obviously you cannot drink. And so after being pregnant back to back, I just never did pick it back up. Now, I used to smoke weed through and through, But I also stopped smoking weed. When Snoop Dogg said he stopped smoking weed, I stopped smoking weed. But he
You
lied.
believe that shit?
He lied. I believed him. I was like, yeah, Snoop, yeah, bro. All right, okay, got you. I'm done. And I never picked it back up.
I knew that's probably the
That
biggest
was
April
cap.
Fool's joke out there. I knew it was something. I'm like, okay. I knew, and then I saw the little grill thing. I'm like, he fooled us all for the $1, man.
Cap. Yeah, he got me.
Damn, how you can't let him get you like that, man. That's crazy. But now they say that April is Stress Awareness Month, and I was talking to a friend of mine. They tell me how their body was breaking down because of stress and stuff. And also, and people notice that with me. They're like, "Hey, you I can tell you're really stressed out and stuff." So, and I know stress is probably the reason that people could tend to go extreme and off themselves. And it's just, we got to find a way to manage our stress because with April being a stress awareness month, I need to tell y'all. So, what are some ways you manage your stress? Like, if you feel like you're getting really stressed out from podcasting?
Yeah, it used to be smoking weed. But this month, for the month of March, I took the entire month off because I wanted to basically work on myself, practice my own self-care. So I collaborated with a few brands that can help me practice my self-care. So I'm going to shout them out. Shout out to the Gym Bands brand. So you can use this like 101 ways, and it's basically for fitness. It is for fitness, not basically, it is for fitness. But stretching, heavy duty fitness, you can use this. Shout out to the Gym Bands brand. Also, I told you how I had lost my dad the day after my son's first birthday. So I collaborated with Angie Clayton. She has this book called Peering into the Tunnel, and outsiders look into grief and how you can care for one another and your loved ones who have experienced loss. And then a 30 days to increase faith, a devotional challenge. And shout out to Rita Henderson, Pastor Rita Henderson. And those have been the ways that I've been managing my stress as of lately. I took off the entire month of March, like I said, to focus on practicing better self-care, especially as a single mom taking care of 2 kids, both 3 and 1. Whew. Very, very important ages, but very rambunctious ages. And then, of course, I don't have anyone that I can kind of just push my kids off to for babysitting for a couple of hours in order for me to take care of myself. But I took this month off so that I can try to do better at that. And whenever I do feel stressed, like I said, it was using recreational drugs in order to kind of keep my mind, but it has been just going to Bible study, reading my devotionals, working out, practicing my fitness, just kind of like watching my favorite movie, hanging out with my kids, going outside. Those are the things that help me practice my stress management. And to the point that April is for what is it called? Self-care, no, self-awareness month. I was wondering why, because I haven't ever heard of it. So I had to do my own research. Surprisingly enough, that shows how much I didn't care or take care of myself. But I looked it up and it said it had something to do with people's taxes. Like it was around the same month that tax season. So I guess those two things coinciding and compounding are reasons why they thought to do it in April. And so going back to just business, a lot of us don't have a business. Most people that do have a business have found ways to get tax credits so they're not as stressed because they're not paying taxes. They're getting money back. They're getting a lot more money back, and they're finding ways to work around those taxes. So just to kind of put a pin in it, I think that it's probably your time to start and launch that business or diversify your streams of income because, it is a stressful time when you are low on funds, when you're trying to make ends meet, you're not happy at your job, you feel stagnant, you feel complacent. So step out and do something different. and this is your call to action to step out and do something for you. And that might mean real estate. That might mean a real estate portfolio. That might mean starting a business. That might mean become an angel investor. There's so many opportunities, but it's your call to action to step out and do something different.
Yes, I definitely agree. By the way, if you're gonna do that real estate, I'm just gonna say a prayer for you because I know in Florida, I was talking to somebody who they tell me they're up for their studying real estate, where they told me that the study guide has almost 1,000 questions, but the actual test is only going to choose 100, and you don't know which 100 they're going to choose. So I said to you, prayers up, you got this. You know what I'm saying? Because that's stressful right there. And also, my people out there, y'all need to learn how to become independent workers. You know what I'm saying? Because that's where you really get all the tax breaks and stuff. That's where you get all the tax write-ups. Becoming an independent worker. And another thing about becoming an independent worker is it's on you to tell them that, hey, I'm not gonna make it today, and they'll be like, okay, no problem. But if you tell them, yeah, because compared to like a 9 to 5 job where you can't ever take that time off. And another thing I would tell y'all about relieving stress is go out and network, go out and meet people, and go out and travel. You know what I'm saying? But going back to network, because you never know, somebody, they might be able to tell you something that'll help you. So get out there and go out to network because you can't let stress win.
Agreed. I absolutely agree.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Liquor Talk. Go ahead and support it if you haven't done so already. The merch is coming, y'all. Me and my buddies were talking about it. We'll get the merch going. Now we're gonna shift into relationships because the one thing I see is I saw a lady literally at a basketball game. Now they weren't at courtside, and she decided to leave this man because they weren't at courtside and left him right there at the game, but they still had a good view. And then I saw another video of a woman getting mad with a man because this man sent her like $30 for lunch. I'm like, what the hell do you be eating that costs more than $30 for lunch? So, and it turns out in these situations, they weren't together, they weren't in a committed relationship. So, why do people expect so much at the first and when they're in the dating phase?
Whew. So my honest truth, if I'm being for real, I don't believe any of those stories. I think that it's all skits because right now we live in this stage where we're just putting on to try to get views. So I don't believe them. I don't know which stories you're talking about, but I don't believe them. But it's not to say that people don't actually think that way. People do actually believe that and think that way. And I think that's just not the person for you, period. Like if that's the person that's saying that they require too much or they're high maintenance and it's not something that you are willing to put out, then don't. But I think that some people do have these crazy, outrageous standards, but then also some people don't believe that they're high standards at all. It's just a boundary that they've set. I would say though that if you can't provide those same things that you are asking for, then you need to check yourself. And if you are always looking for a handout or a hand up, especially within a relationship, like that goes back to that saying, what do you bring to the table? Then you need to check yourself. But I think that for some reason, I don't even know what the who's after us after millennials, who what is the name for the people that are
I
coming
think
up?
it's I think it's Gen Z. I think that's what.
Gen Z and alphas. I don't know who the alphas are, but I've heard of that. But I think Gen Zers, they're finding that these skits and these ways of kind of appealing to the audience is what's going to get you popular on social media. So I feel like it's all made up.
I mean, it may show that's all made up, but there are people that think like that. I've met people, I've seen people in the Facebook groups, I've seen people on social media that think like that. I've seen people on podcasts that talk like that. You know what I'm saying? So I just think you people, y'all need to grow up and reevaluate these standards y'all have, because y'all have standards until it's somebody, not in your case, but unless it's somebody that done knocked you up. Like, y'all have them standards but then you look at the person that knocked you up and like, you around here saying all these standards,
right?
But look at your first baby daddy or
Yeah,
first baby mama.
It's true. But also these young people, Gen Zers, they do live in a different time. Like a lot of them are making a lot of money just on social media. Like we could have never have fathomed. And so their requirements and boundaries are a little different. Like they are actually able to pay for the Louis Vuitton and all the extravagant things. And like people have made that the new normal. So if you cannot provide it for yourself, then I think, again, you need to assess that. But if you can, it's okay to have a boundary and say, well, this is what I require. I do think that it's not okay to be vain and to be self-absorbed and feel like people need to cater to you. But if there's no reciprocity across the board, then that's an issue. If you're saying that this man needs to do this, and this, and all you feel like you come with is just like opening your legs and able to cook and clean, well, that's not really reciprocity. That's not really the leveling out the playing field. That's not anything equal. I would imagine a man would tell you, I can cook and clean. I don't really need you to cook and clean for me. So if that's all you feel like you can contribute, and yet here you are asking for the purses, all of the fashion, the highest ticket on the menu, like that is a little OD. But a lot of women, they selling wigs, they selling clothes, they got their boutiques, they selling nurses outfits. I mean, they figured it out. So a lot of them can actually provide that for themselves. And so I feel like it's okay to ask and require that from somebody.
Yeah. And what's funny is those women, they be the realest ones. They be the coolest ones, the most down to earth, you know what I'm saying? But it's the ones that don't have it, them be the assholes. Instead of being an asshole to people, go get it. Shit.
Oh, well, now I can't argue with that. Yeah, I'm with you. Go get it.
Yeah.
Check yourself, boo. I think also the city girls messed a lot of girls up.
You know what's funny is the city girls messed a lot of people up, but they're not even together anymore.
Yeah. So how do you feel about that? Because those are your people.
I know they're from Florida, you know what I'm saying? But I think it's disappointing that you let your fame and you let everything get in the way of that but I just feel like, you can't really let fame destroy a bond, you know what I'm saying? You can't let that happen, because that's not a real bond if some fame can come in and destroy that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I know there's some people that they're famous, but they still cool with their day ones. The ones that were really down with them when they ain't have nothing, they still cool with their day ones.
Yeah.
You can't ever forget about your day ones. You know what I'm saying? The ones that were grinding with you, that were in the trenches with you while you were getting it out the mud. They were really, really supporting you. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes people get famous and they forget all that, instead of the people that want to come along that's only there because you're famous.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a crazy, crazy world we live in.
Crazy times for sure.
So what's your plan for your podcast going forward? What are you looking forward to with the podcast going forward?
So membership community coming in April. Changing. I'm scrapping all of the shows that I told you about. So when I said we're evolving and moving into a different direction, I'm going more into like the tech space. And so I want to have more conversations. Shout out to, well, I'm not going to say it. Let me think. Okay, you heard it here first. Exclusive.
Okay.
I want to do AI conversations and creations. And so with that, having guests on, and we talk about AI, we talk about technology, but also we, through our conversation, create something tangible for our listeners and viewers through AI and with AI. And so that's just like a teaser. And then also, I don't know if you caught wind of this, but I'm starting a podcast with my ex-boyfriend. And so
What?
we did, yeah, on Valentine's Day, we did an episode together. It was a 3 hour episode, 3.5 hour episode. And that got a lot of views, as you can imagine. Like, what are we talking about? We're exes on Valentine's Day. So that drew a lot of attention. And so we decided that from that, we will do a podcast together. More so because we always critique each other on business ideas. So we're going to critique each other on like business ideas and talk relationships. So that should be an interesting dynamic. And just continuing with the Plan to Podcast episodes.
Did you have a kid with this man? Somebody you didn't have a kid with. Interesting. Hey, I did catch a little tidbits on it. That's a very interesting concept. And so I gotta say shout out to both y'all because most exes they like to hell with this motherfucker. I'm not doing any business with them. They don't exist, you know what I'm saying? So
Right. That's basically what we, every now I have to question, like, why do I still talk to you? Like, we are so different. But it was not like a sour breakup. It's just like at that time he was coming out of a marriage. I've never been married. He had 2 kids. We were all living together. It was all too much. And here I am now have 2 kids. But yeah, so it wasn't like a bad split where we could not keep in touch. We stayed in touch. But also we're so polar opposites from each other that sometimes I do question, why do we still talk to each other? But it makes for great and interesting conversation and back and forth. Hence why we are doing the podcast.
I mean, you're blessed to have that dynamic, you know what I'm saying? Because all my exes, hey, we just went our own separate ways, and we just fell face to the earth. I don't even know if they exist. So it is what it is. But tell the people why they need to tap in and they need to support your podcast and your platforms.
So if we are now in a time where artificial intelligence is like, it's not going anywhere. We are here. The time is now. And so if you are like at the grounds level, but you're interested in getting to know more about AI, then certainly tap in with me because I'm going to be learning in real time with you. So it's not like I'm going to be eons ahead of you and you won't really be able to tap in. We're learning and growing together, and that's what's going to make for a great conversation. And again, we're going to be producing something at the end of it all. So I like to provide something that you can keep, something that's tangible. So maybe that's a workbook from the conversations we create, a newsletter. But every conversation, the goal is to produce something that you can take and use and apply. So follow the podcast because it's going to be worth your while. You're going to learn something. It's going to be both edutaining. So it's educational and entertaining.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I definitely gonna be checking it out because I definitely gotta figure out how to work AI my damn self, you know what I'm saying? Because if I can work AI, this might make a lot of things in my podcasting life a whole lot easier. So I'm definitely gonna be tapping in with you to figure out some ways I can implement the AI to the whole podcast thing. Because right now I'm still a one-man wrecking crew, so I'm still handling everything myself. So I will be definitely tapping in to figure out how I can implement AI into those things as well. But I do want to thank you for blessing the Liquor Talk with your presence. Whenever you're ready to bring me on your podcast, remember I might be in Florida, but I'm just a DM or a call away. I'm like ready to go. So whenever you want to bring me on and let me bless your platforms with my presence, just let me know.
I absolutely will. And thank you again for having me. Blessings to everyone listening under the sound of our voices. If you need a podcast, tap in with me. If you want to join a podcast community, tap in with me, but also continue to support, share this with everyone, not just because I'm on it, but because you're helping your friend, your loved one. So thank you again, B, for allowing me to grace the stage. I really appreciate you, and blessings to everybody. Take care.
Yes. And thank you to listeners for listening to Liquor Talk. Thank you for everybody rocking with Liquor Talk as we continue this push to higher and higher things. We're taking up for the 24 and the 25. Remember to support us on all platforms, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts at. Remember to pour up and tap in with us. Until next time, y'all. Peace.